What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Shukri Wrights podcast with your host, Shukri Wrights. I know the last episode was a solo episode, so was the episode before that. So the last two episodes have been solo episodes by yours truly, Shukri Wrights audio side. But this time around, it's both audio and video because I do have a guest with me. Good friend of mine and another member of the Bleav Network family. He hosts an all wonderful, terrific baseball podcast. Casey Stern, well-known MLB broadcaster and now podcaster, as part of the Bleav Network family. Casey, how are you doing? We last spoke on the Bleav Network podcast, but now it's on my actual personal podcast.
See,
how are you doing?
I feel like I elevated into your personal space right now. I like it. I'm good, man. You? How you doing? All right.
Listen, I'm good. I'm just reminded by people that you're a busy man. I'm like, just part of what happens when you're working hard, or you're trying.
I mean, you're a pro, man. Things are going good. If you ain't got nothing to do, nobody cares about you. That's when we got a problem. If somebody told me 20 years ago in this business, they can hate you, they can love you. They can't not notice you. That's when it's bad. So as long as you're busy, it's good. Plus, your Bruins never lose a game, so they're keeping you busy.
I mean, the Bruins. Listen, I wouldn't say they will never lose a game. I mean, but it just.
But how many did they lose? How many have they lost the whole season?
I mean, 8 games in regulation.
Eight games in regulation.
Yeah,
I mean that's pretty good. It's like that's not even a humble brag. It's just flat brag. It's Bruins flex is just showing the standings. I mean, let's be honest. It's all right.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. The Islanders acquired like Bo Harvard.
Oh, I know.
Recently and signed up to an 8-year deal.
Round one. If we see you in round one, which is possible. The last highlights we'll have will be of when we played you 2 years ago and knocked you out of the playoffs. So at least there's that.
That was then in a very different team. I mean, one can dream.
We had Barry Trotz, and you didn't have McAvoy, excuse me. Yeah,
I mean, he wasn't. Yeah. I mean, he was good, but he wasn't as good.
Wasn't he hurt?
He was playing hurt.
Carlo, I think, was out. Right?
Carlo was the big injury, but McAvoy was definitely playing through something. Yeah. But as far as the like back then versus now comparison goes, I mean the Islanders were definitely they were on like the up and coming like at that time 2 years ago, but now
we're not up or coming anywhere.
I mean
just hanging in there, but that's all right.
You're fighting.
Hey, look, get in the dance, and that's at the end of the day. It's like, look, we went to back-to-back conference finals once in the bubble, one the year after. Game 6 to the Lightning, Game 7. And I didn't expect either of those runs. And that's when it's fun. It's harder when you're rooting for a team like you're rooting for, because now it's cup or bust.
It really is.
Right? I mean, so it's like you can't enjoy anything until like you're in like the conference final. Then you're like, okay, here's where we're supposed to be.
Even then it gets more stressful.
I mean, yeah, but you can't enjoy anything because when you're rooting for a favorite, it's like this is like, my whole childhood, I rooting for the Mets in a family that's all Yankee fans. I used to laugh at all of them because they had this life. Like, you can't enjoy anything because they had to, in the 90s, you had to win everything.
I remember.
And for me, we weren't expected to do anything. So
until
it's
98.
Like everything. Right. Well, sure. But there was a gap after the 80s. And, to me, it was fun. It was better to be the underdog. So I think it's harder, but the Bruins they got a really good team. They already made one deal at the deadline. They'll probably make another. They got a really good squad. So good luck. And I like the Bees. I got no problems with the Bruins. So it's all right.
I appreciate that. Yep. Not that I need you to not have a problem.
No, I know. I was
Bruins.
just telling you. I mean, I'm just sharing. Plus, if you play the Rangers, please don't let them win. That's the only request.
Ranger fans are already on their high horse.
I can't. And
we're going to get Patrick Kane.
I'm not going to get Patrick. They are. I think they are.
I pray to God they actually don't.
Yeah, no, I pray they don't as well. I'm on the your side, but I think they're going to.
There's one reason why. Because
Panarin's there and they're going to be pretty good.
Like they're already pretty good already.
They're already pretty good. Yes.
But my philosophy is this: them getting Patrick Kane now raises major questions. I know he would only be a rental, but they're going to have 5 potential UFAs at the end of the season.
Yeah. Tarasenko too, right?
Tarasenko may very well be walking out the door.
Yeah, he probably gone.
Yeah,
he probably gone.
Like how
Kane though.
And how is Chris Drury going to address the salary cap situation? Because
that's a good question. I went to school with him, by the way. We're not in any of the same classes, but I went to BU at the same time he did. I saw him in the cafeteria often. He was starring on the hockey team, and I was starring in an own version of my life at that point. But
stop it.
But we did go to I went to school with him. Geez, Sean Bates, who played for a while for the Islanders, was a Bruin also. Tom Pody, longtime defenseman. A bunch of guys. I mean, BU had no football team, but we had great hockey. We had great hockey. So I am cool with Boston, and I'm fine with the Bruins. Ray Bourque was one of my favorite players, non-Islander. I can't stand Marchand, but we can move on to baseball because I can't. Like, that's one dude. Like, if you root for him, he on your team, or he in your family, or he like your husband, like or your dad. Like, there ain't nobody else rooting for that guy. I mean, I can't. But the rest of the team, I got no pride. I love Bergeron.
It's either you love playing with them or you hate playing against them. That's really the motto around hockey when it comes to.
He's a stud, but I can't stand him. Yeah, love Bergeron though. Love Bergeron.
It's impossible to hate the guy.
Yeah, love Bergeron. He reminds me of it was like when Bernie Williams was on the Yankees.
Oh,
yeah.
The most likable.
I can't not like Bernie Williams. Like,
exactly.
Mariano Rivera. Like, who doesn't can't not like Mariano Rivera? That's Bergeron for me. He's impossible not to like.
It's a great comparison.
I know I swerved you. We went hockey, but you
didn't swerve me. Like, folks, if you go to the Bleav in Boston Betting podcast with Casey Stern, we literally hinted that we want to talk hockey the next time he came on.
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah, I know.
So, I remember this detail. I know. You're welcome.
I know, but I got the Islander logo like right behind me, and I got the Met. So I'm but we care about our teams. Look, I've doing this 20 years. One of the things I always kept was, a lot of guys that I know in the industry, they pretend they don't have diehard teams. They pretend that they're like totally unbiased. And to me, how did you get into this business if you weren't a diehard? How could you really resonate with the people you're speaking to in TV and radio if you weren't one of these people? So yeah, I'm still one of these people. I'm unbiased as I need to be, unless I'm watching a game. But for me, I'm a diehard just like you are. So
absolutely.
And my Knicks are doing okay too, by the way. I mean, they're doing all right. Clearly they're not going to knock off the Celtics in the playoffs. We get it, but they're doing okay. They're probably going to get a 6th seed. And to me, that's a good year.
That's a great year for the Knicks, especially. And listen, you got to give credit to where credit is due. I mean, Julius Randle is having himself a monster bounce back here after a very disappointing year last year.
Yeah, two sandwiched great years. The one in the middle was bad.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The 2020-21 season was great.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
21-22 was just a disaster.
Yep. He'd been back. He'd been great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
He'd been great.
But speaking of baseball, and now we're back in spring training and the games have begun. There is no greater way to lead off this discussion than to talk about the one thing that's been talked about already the most in the baseball world, and that is the pitch clock. Like, it's like baseball's version of the shot clock.
Yep.
Like, it's new. Of course, if you're a traditional baseball fan, you hate it. If you are a new baseball fan, you're like, well, it's not bad. So let's just give it a shot. Like, me personally, I already seen 2 very entertaining sequences already. First and foremost, yesterday's, which is at the time of the recording, which is Sunday night.
Yep, Sox game. Yep.
Saturday, Red Sox Braves. Mm-hmm. That last batter of the bottom of the 9th had, like, either he was clueless or he was totally unaware of the new rule, was led to him being striking out,
which is the dumb. Can I just interject for one? Which, by the way, is a dumb part of this rule. Like, the batter's got to be there with 8 seconds to go. If you're not there in time, you're an idiot. It's like they're going to throw the ball down the middle. Like, obviously the batter got to get there in time. Mm-hmm. Why the hell the batter got it? Like, so we're saying the pitcher needs 8 seconds basically to deliver, and that he can't get into his mojo if the batter's not in the box. To me, that's a little weird anyway.
It is, which leads directly
to the pitcher. It's not on the batter. I'm sorry,
Casey. That leads directly to number 2, the second most interesting moment. Today's Rangers-Indians game. I don't know if you had a chance to watch or maybe like take a sneak peek into the game. Yeah, but there was a moment today that I'm like, what? So basically, for those that don't know, they're probably going to see on the MLB.com and MLB Network or whatever. So basically, what happened was this: the batter had stepped into the batter's box. He took the pitch. The pitcher got the ball back. He asked for a new ball. The clock now is still ticking, by the way, 8 seconds, and it kept ticking. And they mentioned it on the Bally Sports Ohio broadcast. They never reset the clock, and it keeps going. Now he's got to get the pitch off quickly, and it's like, what the hell? So there's already a couple of like weird nixes in here in terms of this new pitch clock. I want to get your overall thoughts on what do you think of the pitch clock so far? It's very early. It's only a couple of days of spring training in, and some of the things that you like and dislike about the pitch clock already.
Well, I think first of all, we got to understand mistakes are okay now. In the first week in spring training, this is when the whole point is to make them now so that you don't make them in season, so that this doesn't happen on September 18th.
Oh,
right.
God,
so we all can go crazy now, but the idea would be that they will get a better idea by the time the season starts. And even if there are some mistakes at the beginning, by the time you get midway through the season, these guys all have a handle of what it is. And if this is the way baseball's played for the next 100 years, then having it take 2 or 3 months for them to get used to it, and I would agree, is not that big of a deal, at least now, right?
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, like anything else, it's not all great, and it's not all terrible. We are like in this world of like the world of Skip Bayless, where it's like we got to say dumb things like Tom Brady terrible or some garbage, right? So
one extreme or the other.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we got to come up with all this. It's new, and change is always bad if it's for anything as beautiful as the great game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But other changes in other sports we now look at, and we don't remember where were we or how did we feel when they first came. I'll think about hockey, just where we were, and I'll give you two. When the 2-line pass, when people probably who were younger, like, what's the 2-line? You go even play old video.
It's pre-lockout.
Right. And you had a totally different game where the ice had not been opened up, which allowed for a lot more breakaways. After the Devils installed the trap, the whole league kind of got caught up, and they needed to open up the ice, and they did. I think about faceoffs. People forget that years ago, there wasn't that 15-second rule that after every play and after every whistle, there was going to be another draw. Now, they'll drop the puck. If you're not in there, I mean, it is literally on clockwork 15 seconds. That used to slow the game. You used to have guys mulling around, making longer changes, look, especially at home, to see if the other guys were going to put this guy, then I can go with all that, right? Mm-hmm. But they made it, and now we don't even notice things like that. We've seen the 3-point line move in and out, and the game has changed, right? We don't know in the NFL what a catch is, granted, but they've had their own changes with that. We've moved back extra points. We've done all sorts of different stuff. 2-point conversions, remember? That didn't used to exist. The 2-point conversion is going to ruin the game of football. I heard that. No, it does not ruin the game of football. So everyone's going to freak out. But to me, the quicker pace is good. The games have been shorter, and I think that's good. I think it's going to take some getting used to. I think it's better that if you're at home or you're in the stadium, you can't take a bathroom break now unless it's between innings, because that pace is so quick that there's not really, other than a pitching change, going to be that slowed down point. We need that because young kids, they're on TikTok for 37 seconds and they're bored. Mm-hmm. They don't want to watch games for 3.5 hours. Lifers like me and you, we don't care. I love the game of baseball, right? Not going to bother me. But you got people who you got to draw into the game of baseball.
Correct.
And it's easier to sell them on the NBA because pop culture is so tied to it that already you're getting that. You don't have that in baseball. Mike Trout, you got people who don't even know who Mike Trout is or what he looks like. They heard of him. They don't know who the hell the guy is. You get the Eagles game in the NFC Championship. We got to show a lower third. That's Mike Trout. Think about it. You're not going to do that with Sidney Crosby even, and that's the NHL, or Alex Ovechkin. Mike Trout, nobody knows who the hell the guy is.
Yeah.
So to me, you have to find ways for younger kids to buy in, and I think the quicker pace is important. What I do wonder about is going to be how pitchers gas out. We're seeing guys go in relief stints because even the starters now, at the beginning of spring training, they go an inning. They go 2 innings. What happens with that quicker pace when they're going 6-7 innings, which, by the way, a lot of people don't go now anyway? Everything's been on pitch counts for years. We've seen it. You and I watch guys from go over 120 to 100. Now, guys, really 80 pitches, you're making changes, right? Mm-hmm. Third time through an order, you're making changes. Well, now what about the guys who are not in spring training, max effort opening day? This is my put up, shut up time with my new team. and they're going max effort at that pace that they're not used to, they can't take a deep breath. They can't stroll around and play with the rosin bag. They can't do all those little things, which, by the way, are gamesmanship things that pitchers do to slow down.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see some guys gas early the first few times that they make starts with this and not realize that pace is going to mess them up a bit. I do think that's going to happen because, look, it is a lot quicker, and these guys have built-in ways that they know, just like David Ortiz. Look, guys like Nomar and Poppy, and I know I'm bringing up two Boston guys, but they two of them.
Well, no, it's a great point because of their routine. They have we all remember what Nomar used to do, what Big Poppy used to do. But it's a great point you bring up. Yeah,
they slow it down, and that's just part of their thing. This is how it's also how they play gamesmanship to get into. I am in control of this pitcher and batter. You are going to go on my pace. You're going to go on my time. Well, now they're both going on a clock. And I think both pitchers and hitters are going to have to learn to deal with that gamesmanship totally be taken out. Because I think on both sides, a lot of times that's what it is. It's buying that extra moment. You didn't forget what the third base coach sign is. You're not bunting. You don't need it. But you step out and look at the third base coach because really you're trying to take a deep breath because your heart rate going up. And you got to go hit Scherzer in a seventh inning with the bases loaded, right? And the game on the line. You can't have that moment anymore. I'm curious to see how that's going to be on both sides.
I think it's going to be really fascinating because I think that going back to an earlier point that you made, and I think that is so important, we live in an age where it's either one extreme or the other, and it pisses me off to no freaking end. It genuinely does. Whether if it's in sports, life,
anything.
Politics,
anything. Religion,
everything
is great, or everything's the stupidest thing
exactly.
you ever heard.
The age of the gray area is gone.
Yeah, you got it. Yep.
And that's why I feel like this period now, where we are in spring training is literally an infant. Like games have just started being played in the last 36 hours.
Yep. And
we haven't even gotten into March yet. And I wonder if the rules, and you could probably tell me yay or nay, I don't know if the rules extend themselves into the World Baseball Classic, which is scheduled to start. It won't?
No. Not for what I know of, no.
Okay, I was wondering about that. If it's just exclusively for Major League Baseball.
I don't think so. I think it's exclusively for Major League Baseball. I'm not positive on that, but I because it's the first time it's been asked to me, but I don't think so. I don't think so. Which is weird in itself, right?
Yeah.
Then the transition is back. But think about this. Here's the other part. You have so many guys in the World Baseball Classic. You've got guys who are leaving their teams. It gets disjointed. Mm-hmm. You've got a shift that with new rules that guys are trying to deal with, what the changes are going to be, that's gone. How stolen bases, and we're seeing that already with the lack of throws over to first and the bigger bags. All these changes, and you got a shortened spring training because you got the Mets have, for example, 11 guys that are going to be gone for 2.5 weeks. And who the hell playing? The tight end were at 88, right? When in the seventh inning, guy never going to sniff the field. So then they're going to come back and have like 10 days, 2 weeks for everybody to figure it out. I think you're going to see some growing pains of all the rules and what the impacts are and the changes when you get into April because of, to your point, how disjointed things are going to be, for sure.
Absolutely. And that's why I feel like spring training in itself it's already exciting. I mean, hell, like yesterday and today, I can honestly say I found myself listening to games on radio because, I mean, there's something about late February spring training. You see snow outside our homes, and you can just plug in the game and listen to the broadcast. Or heck, if you have MLB TV or like the MLB app on your smart TV, watch a game or two, and it's like it's glorious. And which now leads me to the very next thing I want to touch on, and I think one of the major storylines in 2023, in my opinion, is going to be what happens with Shohei Ohtani, because no one right now could sit here and say that we have an idea as to whether if Shohei Ohtani is going to commit long-term to the Angels or not. I don't even know. And I've been keeping tabs, and I'm like, let me pose this question. And I want all of you out there, and I'm sure this is going to end up on Twitter somehow, somewhere. What if the Angels have another non-competitive year, even if with Trout healthy? What if they have another non-competitive year, and here you come July 31st or August 3rd, whatever the trade deadline is? What do you do with Ohtani if he refuses to sign a long-term deal
with
the Angels. Casey, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think Trout should ask the hell out of there too. And he is part of the problem with Mike, and like him, he seems like a nice guy. Is he don't want to move the needle at all, which is okay. Yeah. But he's not going to do the look. I'm not trying to not shift gears in conversation. I'm not trying to make it about doing what Kyrie and KD did, which to me, no offense to KD, great player, but even if it's your right, what you said, and yeah, it got a lot of attention, I don't know if that's good for the game. That's just not the way I look at it.
Right.
But baseball players don't ever do that, really. And Mike Trout, if anybody could, absolutely could. Just say, hey, look, once Ohtani's gone, there's no reason for me to be here. Get me the hell out of here. He's from Philly. You got Phillies, Yankees, Mets, Red Sox, tons of teams that got money that would love Mike Trout to bring him back Northeast. That's what, if I were him, I'm out. Like, peace. Sorry. But for me with Ohtani, he's definitely going to get traded. He's not going to finish. I would tell you, if you ask me 1 to 10, how sure am I that Ohtani doesn't finish the season with the Angels? I'd say about a 9. The only reason I can't say 10 is because what if they play well? What if their pitching overperforms? What if they're in a playoff spot, even if it's a wild card? Then they're not going to trade him. So it's possible if they're better than I think they are. But if you told me, hey, I guarantee the Angels are sub 500, I would tell you it's 11 out of 10 that he's moved, because they're going to try all year to song and dance with him. But why would he stay? First of all, he's got the Dodgers, who are right there in LA, a way better team, a way better franchise, and got way more money. Why would he could stay in the area if he loves LA. He's not even in LA. He's in Orange County. I mean, anybody who doesn't live there, that's not L.A. They're the Anaheim Angels.
That's like
I don't
south.
care if Los Angeles Angels or not. He an hour of traffic on the 5 freeway away from L.A., right? You got the Seattle Mariners, where it's always going to be a tie because of the Ichiro factor and guys.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm serious.
Away that way, and Julio Rodriguez and a lot of money to spend and all those other kind of things.
And he signed, by the way, he signed a long term. And by the end of it, may end up having the largest contract of any Major League Baseball player ever.
Yes. And to me, and they got the All-Star game this year, and Ohtani, going to be there. Seattle is absolutely on the board. And then to me, you got the 2 New York teams, because the Mets and Steve Cohen have $1 billion. And remember, they just tried to spend $320 million of it on Carlos Correa, which they didn't, right? Yeah. So that's even without whatever they would do for Ohtani. And the Yankees, who to me, look, I'm not a Yankee fan, but at the end of the day, if you ask me, if I was Ohtani's agent, where would I tell him to play, or his family member? I'd be playing for the Yankees. Are you crazy? Like, I'm Ohtani. I'm one of one in the whole world of people who have ever played this sport, this great game. There's literally one guy. Now, I'm not saying he's the greatest player that's ever lived, but he's in his own category.
With Babe Ruth, and rightfully so.
He's in his own category of what he's doing. There's nowhere in sports, again, I'm not a Yankee guy, but you got Dallas Cowboys, you got Montreal Canadiens in hockey, you got, I don't even know who else, and then the Yankees all the way up there, way above everybody else. They're a brand that is unlike anything else, and imagine the kind of money that Ohtani would make there off the field. Imagine the money the Yankees would make with him and Judge for the next. They might not be able to field the rest of the team, but it may not matter. To me, Ohtani's going to end up on the Yankees. I've always believed that. I still will say that. But it's Yankees, Mets, Mariners, Dodgers. And I almost think slim to zero chance anyone else, including the Angels, moving on past this year. He will not stay with the Angels. He won't.
And it's interesting, the answer that you provided. You provided me a large steak sandwich to digest. And I say that because I'm thinking about it right now. But
now I'm hungry.
Well, you're welcome. That makes both of us. But like you gave me a lot to digest there. First and foremost, you talk about the Mariners in regards to Ohtani, that you feel that there is a very high likelihood that he does not finish the season with the Angels. I'm with you there. My reason is because even with Mike Trout healthy, I genuinely do not trust the Angels in this division. That's suddenly scary.
Yeah, because now better. Yep.
The Mariners are going to be better. I expect Seattle to continue to even be better than what they were last year. And you're going to have a full year of Julio Rodriguez on that fresh, newly signed long-term deal. Also, I expect Robbie Ray to return back to Cy Young form. He didn't have a terrible year last year, but it wasn't as good as it was in 2021 when he was the Cy Young winner with the Toronto Blue Jays. So I expect the Mariners to be right there. Offense, and also, by the way, they acquired Teoscar Hernandez from the Blue Jays in the offseason. So they added to the offense.
Yep.
So I look at Seattle, I say they're going to be right there for the wild card. Mark my words, on February 26th, they're going to be right there for the wild card.
They're going to be in the division race. I don't think they'll win it. I think the Astros will
I think it belongs to the Astros.
But the Mariners will be in it in terms of within 5-6 games late into the year. They're not going to get blown. The Mariners, Logan Gilbert, they got a lot of good young pitchers. And they got a better lineup than they had last year where they had an anemic offense. And I'm with you. And I think Texas is better too, which is going to take some wins out of the Angels. I mean, I don't know how healthy DeGrom is going to be. We all know how good he is. But I can tell you that Bruce Bochy, the best manager I ever covered, and he's going to make a huge difference on that team. And I watched what Buck Showalter did with the culture with the Mets. We've seen this before. And there's a small category of guys in the last 30 years in that sport that can make that kind of culture difference. And Bruce Bochy right at the top of that list. Did it in San Diego. He did it in San Francisco. And he's going to do it again in Texas. Now, it may not all be this year, but I think they're going to be a lot better than they were. Seager, Semien, a lot of the players that they have coming up to kind of add to those stars. They've got some frontline pitching now. And they got
Jack Leiter being one of them.
They got a guy in Boch who knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but again, that hurts the Angels. That's another team in that division that is going to be hard for them to beat. And look, if you told me Texas finished ahead of the Angels in the standings this year, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, oh, that's impossible. Like, no, it's Texas. They're another team in that division, as we just talked about eloquently.
They could be a 500 team for sure. They have a chance.
I think they'll be a little bit above 500, but I don't think they'll make the playoffs. And the reason is because I genuinely love Bruce Bochy. She's already a surefire Hall of Fame manager.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
No question. Yeah. But my thing is, the day that they signed Jacob deGrom, I said this verbatim. I said, they're going to regret that contract for one reason only.
Probably.
Health. That's the only reason. It's not.
It's the only reason. Oh, no. He's look. I've asked, my word. We always make these grand things about pitchers and or players, and this guy's this, and this guy's the greatest, and yada. You talk to pitchers, and I mean Pedro level, pitchers, about deGrom, and they've never seen anyone with the repertoire that he's got. The guy's throwing 100 on a dot. Now, look, Tom Glavine did that, but he was throwing 92 and 89, not 100. deGrom doing it, throwing 100 in terms of dotting the four quadrants, with a 93-mile-an-hour slider in the dirt and a ridiculous changeup, and he can even throw a curveball and mess around with you there too. He just stupid good. But to your point, it's only when he's on the field. So the problem is, if you tell me that Jacob deGrom going to win a Cy Young in this 5-year deal, it's possible, but he also going to have a year where he only makes 15 starts. He can have a year where he's going to go back and forth between the IL and back on and back off. And you don't know which year this, that, or the next one's going to be. And I think at the end of the day, if you told me his ERA in whatever games he pitches is going to be 2.5 or below, yeah, it's going to be. But to your point, I don't know how many innings. And that's the problem. That's the problem.
And I think durability.
Oh, for sure.
When you pitching in that division, and obviously the baseball fan would say, well, obviously in the American, but no, I'm saying specifically in that division, it matters. It matters because I think of Houston, although they lost Justin Verlander, but I actually have a great deal of faith in that pitching staff as a whole.
I love Christian. I think Javier is a Cy Young candidate for me.
Yeah, like Christian Javier being one of them. Yep. Another one like Luis Garcia. Do not sleep on him at all. Yep. And then Framber Valdez, who is now the ace of that staff.
Sure. Yep.
Like, do not sleep on Houston's pitching. Abreu, another one. Yes.
Another dude who, if they stretch him out, I think could be a real good starter in this league. So this is not, for the Angels, this is not going to be, forget about not being easy to make the playoffs. Not many people are going to pick them to make the playoffs because, look, it's Astros are going to win the West. The Yankees are going to win the East. Now, look, the Yankees are not a perfect team, but they got enough. And the fact that they added Rodon to that pitching, healthy Severino, Nestor Cortez.
Yeah.
I don't want to use hate because I feel like, but I hate the Yankees. They're going to win.
That's understandable.
They're going to win.
We're New Yorkers. We're born to hate each other's teams.
They're going to win over 95 games at least, maybe 100, and they're going to win the division. So you got Astros, you got Yankees. Then in the middle, you got who the hell knows. I love Tito, so it's probably the Guardians.
I'm going White Sox.
The Twins.
I'm
The
going
White
Sox.
Sox had a terrible year last year. I like Pedro Grifol, their new manager.
Yeah.
The Twins, but only one team coming out of there, right?
Yeah.
Then you got Seattle, you got Toronto, and how the Angels going to get past even Tampa. I don't know if they're better than Texas. I don't see the Angels' path to even get a wild card in this.
What about Baltimore? And I detected two disrespects
I like
there.
the Orioles. I like the Orioles, but I kind of backpat them a bit. Like they're like that team still.
I detected two disrespects there in your answer.
Me? No,
like not in a literal sense, but in a humorous way.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Like, but more like this is the hardcore baseball conversation here.
The whole Central, I disrespected for sure.
No. I picked the White Sox because I still believe in the young core that they have, despite losing Jose Abreu. That's a massive loss. Yeah. I don't think they're going to be able to replace.
And a massive gain for the Astros, by the way. No offense to Gurriel.
Right. Correct. Yes. And I still think the young core of this White Sox team is still good enough to contend in the Central with the Guardians. Now, the other part of the disrespect that I detected was I feel like a lot of people are going to sleep on Baltimore again this year. Last year, I really liked the fact that they took another step forward with some of the young guys that they have, like Cedric Mullins and then the catcher.
I love Gunnar Henderson.
Gunnar Henderson is another one. Like my gosh. Like
Adley Rushman, obviously, for sure. Yeah.
Like he did that. Baltimore is
I don't think they can pitch enough yet.
The pitching is not there yet.
I don't think they're pitching enough yet. And that's the problem. I think they're competitive, but I think, they may even have a year where they're not as good as they were last year, and people will go way overboard and crazy. Toronto went through this. If you go back to the year that Toronto, I think it was in I call it the bubble year, but the shortened COVID season.
Yeah.
And they got into the playoffs, and then they got Semien, and they had all these, it was like they were going for broke, and they had a disappointing year, and everybody was like, well, what the hell's wrong, right? Like, they're not good enough. And they're like 12 years old. Like, they're still figuring out. Like,
babies.
Bo Bichette last year, people were getting on him at the All-Star break. Like there's something wrong. And I don't think he made an out in the last 3 months. I mean, he's only like 24 years old.
Yeah.
I think the Orioles are in a process, and they're getting better, but they're not nearly ready to pitch enough yet. And part of the problem that they have is that because they're not good enough yet, they can't get a free agent that's a real good pitcher to go there yet. Like, they got Kyle Gibson, right? So, like, that's what they got. Like they can't go sign DeGrom. He's not going to Baltimore. They couldn't get Carlos Rodon. Even Taijuan Walker didn't want to go there. Went to Philadelphia. They need another year of all those young kids and a little bit more of that street cred, and then go out there and throw some real money, and they got to reel in a fish or two. I mean, think about the last time the Orioles have gotten a big-time starter. It's been well over a decade.
Yeah,
the last big money guy they got was Ubaldo Jimenez off the years in Colorado when they paid him $50 million to come in.
And when his disastrous
and then it turned into
deal.
the biggest mistake Buck ever made, leaving Britton in the bullpen and having Jimenez come out in that game against Toronto that I was covering at Turner at the time. But they have not been able, even the guys that they built up, Tillman left, Bud Norris left, the guys who had like small, good stints there, until Baltimore can pitch, I just don't buy it. I respect them, but I don't buy it till they can pitch.
And you made some valid points in which that the youth factor and in the pitching, which I completely overlook. And you're right, like the pitching is not there completely yet. By the way, just a quick note. Part one of this podcast is going to conclude because there is a timer at the top on what we're both able to see, but there will be a part two. Just coming up immediately after. But in continuation, the other disrespect that I caught on was you talk about the Yankee rotation in terms of the Yankee signing Rodon, which I absolutely loved, and you talked about the big if surrounding Luis Severino, and obviously that's going to be a big part of the Yankees pitching success this year, and as well as Nestor Cortez. What will his 2023 look like after the All-Star season they had last year? You forgot to mention Garrett Cole. I have said,
but
of course you don't.
He's giving up a home run while the interview's going on.
Good Lord, don't remind the. Listen, it'll be opening day in a few weeks.
I'll
turn on the Yankee game and somehow set up.
Who they playing? He giving up
San Francisco.
Oh yeah, he giving up a home run at Conforto.
In the first inning, I'm like, yo,
Conforto's first giant home run coming off Cole for sure.
Listen, if it actually happens, I'm going to message you. I'm going to text you. I'm just like, you really called it. Thanks. Thanks for spoiling my first inning of what's supposed to be a glorious day for baseball fans. And already my ace supposedly is supposed to freaking not give up the long ball. But what do I know? But I do think that Cole, it's hard for me to leave him out because he still is that guy. And especially after the October that he had, he was not the Yankees' problem at all last October. He actually pitched great. I think Cole Rodon is going to be a pretty nasty top two in your rotation in terms of power pitching. Both guys got a power fastball, and their breaking stuff is just absolutely filthy. Your thoughts?
And for those who I'm reconnecting my microphone as we do this, so if you hear me, bear with me. I look at Garrett Cole, and I think he is a guy who is not as great as the Astros pitcher we saw in that time period where he was carrying them on the backs. I think he's more of he needs to be a 1A to a 1B. And I don't think, by the way, I don't think any starter can carry the way that we used to see aces carry teams anymore.
Great point.
It doesn't exist. I mean, think about even Steven Strasburg, Max Scherzer, right? Most of the time, go back to all the way back to Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling, you usually have that two-headed monster. So I think Garrett Cole just needs to be a really good version of Garrett Cole because of the money and the 9-year deal that he got. People are expecting Cy Young, and I don't mean Cy Young awards, but I mean Cy Young. And he not that. Like, people expecting him. He not paid. Garrett Cole not pragmatics. Garrett Cole not Pedro Martinez. Garrett Cole not Randy Johnson. He not Johnson. He's not. He's a really good top flight arm. He not Verlander. He's not Max Scherzer. He's just not. But I really like Cortez. I really like Rodon. I love a healthy Severino too. And you put those guys in that mix, he don't need to do it by himself. And I think just like Aaron Judge was leading off games with doubles and getting crushed because it wasn't a home. But he didn't have enough lineup around. I think more around Garrett Cole will take some pressure off him in that rotation.
Part 1 is concluding now. Part 2 coming up just shortly. Don't go anywhere.